It looked like any other Saturday evening. Derek's house, large, full of polished surfaces and scented candles, the kind of home that photographs well. I brought a small gift. An opal ring, tucked into a velvet pouch. I'd kept it in my jewelry box for over 20 years, waiting for a daughter-in-law I could trust with it. The moment I stepped through the door, I knew something had changed. There were guests. Music. Laughter. But it felt arranged, almost rehearsed. No one looked up. Not really. Laura passed by in heels too high for comfort, glass in hand, and didn't see me. Not didn't notice, didn't see. Derek offered a quick hug, one arm, eyes already glancing past me. Then I saw Alex. My grandson. His eyes met mine, and for a heartbeat, he looked afraid. A strange, stiff kind of fear. But he blinked, forced a smile, and disappeared into a hallway before I could speak. I stood by the entryway, coat still in hand, the ring growing warm in my palm. I waited. 5 minutes. Maybe 7. Then I turned and walked back out into the night. No goodbyes. No scene. Just air colder than it had been an hour earlier, and the quiet understanding that I was no longer needed. Not even noticed. I didn't go straight home. I drove a while, past the shopping center where I used to take Derek for ice cream when he was little, past the church where his father's funeral was held, past the park where Alex once fed ducks with such solemn purpose, like it was sacred work. I didn't stop. Just circled. Kept moving until my hands stopped shaking. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the porch light flickered. Russell always meant to fix it. I never reminded him. Now it was just me and the flicker. Inside, the quiet was thick. The kind that fills your chest. The kind you feel behind your ribs. I set the opal ring on the kitchen counter. It looked ridiculous there, beside a jar of pickles and a stack of old mail. And I stood for a moment, staring at it, and asked myself the question I'd spent years avoiding: when did I stop being part of the family? It hadn't happened all at once. That would have been easier to name. No, it had been slow, like water rising inch by inch under a door, until you realize the carpet's ruined and your feet are soaked. After Russell died, I gave everything to Derek. Not money, though. Yes, there was money. But I gave him my time. My presence. My belief in his goodness. I cleaned his house when Laura had morning sickness. I brought homemade soup when Alex had strep. I canceled bridge club to babysit so they could go to Napa for their anniversary. Never complained. Never asked for anything. It didn't occur to me to ask. I was his mother. That was the job. And before that? Before Laura. I gave him my 20s. My 30s. Worked 10-hour days at the firm, came home to cook and iron and proofread his college essays. There were years I didn't buy new shoes so he could go to summer camp. When he broke his arm, I slept in the hospital chair for 4 nights straight, back aching, heart in my throat every time the nurse came in. I thought that mattered. I thought that built something, a bond, a foundation. But apparently, what I was building was an illusion. I'd always told myself I didn't need recognition. But maybe that wasn't true. Maybe I just never expected to be erased. And yet, even as I stood there in my own kitchen, alone, uninvited, holding a ring that no one had wanted, a part of me still tried to explain it away. Maybe they were distracted. Maybe Laura didn't see me. Maybe Alex had homework. Maybe I'd misread everything. That's what hurt most, that I was still trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I warmed a bowl of soup I'd made 2 nights ago. Lentil with rosemary. The kind Russell used to love. I sat at the kitchen table, spoon in hand, and stared at the empty chair across from me. You'd say I'm being foolish, I told him. Overthinking. But I wasn't. Not this time. It wasn't just the party. It was the slow change in Derek's tone, from warm to managerial. The way Laura stopped calling me Mom. The shift from holidays to polite invitations that arrived by group text, always last minute, always vague. It was the day I noticed my framed picture was no longer on the mantel. The day I arrived to pick up Alex, and he was already gone. "Oh, didn't Derek tell you?" Laura had said, breezily, as if I'd just forgotten to check the weather. And then, tonight. That look in Alex's eyes. Fear. That wasn't confusion. That wasn't a child who'd forgotten something. That was someone who saw danger and couldn't speak. I slept poorly. I kept thinking about that look. And the ring on the counter. And how, if I were honest, I'd known something was wrong for months, maybe longer. But I didn't want to see it. Because what does a mother do, when the people she raised stop seeing her? You stay quiet. You keep showing up with soup and cards and offers to help. Until one day, you stop. That day, for me, was today. And the very next morning, the stillness was broken by a headline. I hadn't even made my tea yet. Emergency crews dispatched to private residence after suspected poisoning. Multiple guests hospitalized. 2 in critical condition. I dropped the tea bag. I didn't need to see the address. I knew. Derek's house. The photo on the screen, the yellow tape, the paramedics, the familiar white siding. And just like that, everything I'd been pretending not to feel snapped into focus. Alex's eyes. Laura brushing past me. The coldness. The performance. None of it was random. None of it was forgetfulness or distraction or stress. Something had been planned. And I wasn't supposed to be there. But I had been. Just long enough to feel the shift. Just long enough to sense that something had gone wrong. And now the silence made sense. Because it wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. I wasn't just being excluded. I was being removed. Inside the folder labeled Recordings were 3 audio files, each marked only by a date. The most recent was from about 2 months ago. I plugged in the USB drive, waited for the files to load, then double-clicked the newest one. I expected more static, maybe muffled background noise or garbled voices. What I got was crystal clear. Derek's voice came through first, calm, measured, with that clipped tone he always used when he wanted to sound professional. "We just need the final paperwork. Once she's off the policy, we can transfer the rest under Laura's name." A second voice responded, male, lower, more hesitant. "She's still alive." Derek replied without a pause. "Not for long. We've waited long enough." I froze. Not out of fear. Not yet. Out of something else, something colder. A slow understanding that spread through me like a winter draft under a locked door. It wasn't the words alone. It was how casually he said them. How completely detached he sounded. No anger. No guilt. Just a simple sentence about a future that had already been decided. I closed the laptop and sat still for several minutes, hands on the table, trying to feel my way through it. Not just the recording, but everything that had led up to this moment. Every clipped phone call, every missed invitation, every time Derek brushed past me like I wasn't even there. I kept thinking of Alex, how he looked at me before disappearing into the hallway. That look wasn't confusion. It was a warning. That's what I'd missed. I stood up slowly and walked into the den. Russell's old chair was there by the window, just like always. The cushion still sagged in the spot where he used to sit, and the side pocket still held an old Reader's Digest from 2009. I moved the chair and pulled the bookcase forward. Behind it, mounted into the wall, was a small steel safe. The keypad still worked. I entered the code Russell had used for everything, his Navy ID number. The lock clicked. Inside were our estate documents, backup flash drives, a second set of keys to the cabin, and a leather folder labeled, "In case." I pulled it out and brought it to the kitchen table. It was all there: insurance policies, signed affidavits, notarized ownership documents for both this house and the cabin. One paper caught my eye immediately, a life insurance policy from just last year, with Russell's careful handwriting in the margin. He'd written, "Confirmed, Michelle primary, no alternates." But in the new documents, ones Derek had submitted, I was listed as deceased. A signature that mimicked mine sat at the bottom of the page. At first glance, it looked right. But the more I looked, the more I saw the mistakes. The "C" in my first name curled the wrong way. The spacing between Michelle and Blossom was too wide. Whoever had forged it knew my signature, but not how my hand moved. Attached to the form was an email. Derek had sent it to someone at a financial firm I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Beneficiary adjustment, urgent." In the body, he wrote, "My mother's status has been updated due to recent events. Please use attached form for records going forward." No emotion. No elaboration. Just cold replacement of a living person with a legal fiction. I turned back to the flash drive and opened the folder labeled Notes. One of the documents was titled "Read This." It was a scanned letter, handwritten by Russell and dated 3 months before his stroke. "Michelle. If you're seeing this, something's gone wrong. I have suspicions, not proof, but enough to be concerned. If I'm gone and things don't feel right, I want you to look deeper. Start with the USB. Check the investment accounts. If Derek has accessed anything without your consent, call Mark immediately. Don't sign anything unless you've read every word. Don't trust Derek's explanations. Don't ignore Alex. If he's acting strange, it means he knows more than he can say. Please, trust yourself. Love. R." I read it twice. Then a third time. The words didn't scare me. They focused me. I sat for a while longer, letting the pieces settle. I realized that this wasn't a crisis in motion. It was a plan already underway. The only reason I was alive was because something had interrupted it, likely my unexpected appearance at the party. Maybe someone drank something meant for me. Maybe the timeline changed. I couldn't know. But the one thing I did know was that they hadn't finished what they started. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in over a decade. Mark Reynolds answered on the third ring. "Michelle," he said, not asking who it was. "I need your help," I said. "It's Derek. Something's wrong. I have documents. Audio. It's serious." He didn't hesitate. "Are you safe right now?" "Yes, but I don't think I can stay here much longer." "Don't speak to Derek. Don't answer any calls. Pack what you need. I'll be there tonight." "The cabin has heat and water," I told him. "I can drive there now." "Good. I remember the place. Do not go online. Don't access shared bank accounts or email. We'll do this clean." He hung up. I stood still, listening to the dial tone, then put the phone back on its cradle. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I didn't even feel the way I thought someone might feel after discovering their only child had planned their death. What I felt was clarity. Cold, clean, unmistakable clarity. I went upstairs, pulled a small duffel bag from the closet, and packed what I needed. The documents, the flash drives, Russell's letter, 2 changes of clothes, basic toiletries, and the spare key to the cabin. I added the opal ring last. It no longer felt like a gift. It felt like evidence. Before I left, I turned off the lights and walked through the house one more time. I paused in the living room, where family portraits still hung on the wall. I looked at Derek's face in one of them, smiling, arms around Laura and Alex, and I wondered when it had shifted. When the line between love and strategy had blurred. Or maybe it never had. Maybe I'd just been too generous in the story I told myself. As I stepped outside, the air was cold and sharp. The stars were clear. The drive to the cabin would take 3 hours. I'd done it 100 times with Russell. This time I drove alone. But I wasn't afraid. I had everything I needed. And I was finally ready to act. The road to the cabin wound through hills that had always reminded me of Russell's shoulders, broad, steady, slightly uneven in places. We used to come here every spring, just after tax season, when I'd finally have a few days off. He'd fish, I'd read. We'd both pretend we weren't checking our watches for the next obligation. Now, the only thing waiting was silence. I parked behind the cabin where the trees offered some cover. The cabin looked just as we'd left it 2 years ago. The wood siding needed stain. One shutter had come loose. The porch swing was still hanging, slightly crooked. I unlocked the door, flipped the breaker, and waited for the hum of the old refrigerator to start. It did. The heat clicked on next, slower, but working. Inside, I moved deliberately. I checked the windows, bolted the doors, then went straight to the fireplace. Russell had always said it was his favorite feature, though he never used it. The brickwork was decorative, but behind the mantel, cleverly concealed by a false panel, was a small steel safe he'd installed years ago. Few people even knew it existed. I entered the code, the same one I'd used earlier that night. Inside was a metal lockbox. I carried it to the kitchen table and opened it slowly. There were documents. Old, yellowed at the edges, but well preserved. Some were from Russell's Navy days. Others were personal records, title deeds, old bank accounts, even 2 birth certificates, one for Derek, and one for a name I didn't recognize. I set those aside for now. Then I saw the second USB drive. Smaller than the one I'd brought from home. No label. Just a slip of paper tucked beside it, from Alex. Just in case. I sat down and plugged it into the laptop. There was only one file, an audio recording. I played it. It was Alex. His voice, younger, quieter, but unmistakably his. The file began mid-sentence, as if the recording had started late. Don't think she'll ask questions. She never does. We just keep her out of the way and it's fine. A pause. Then Derek, fine until she dies. Then the estate's clean. Laura's voice followed. She's stubborn, Derek. You know she won't sign anything unless it looks routine. She still thinks she's part of the family. She won't be for long. But if Alex starts asking questions again, we'll have to find another option. Leave Alex to me, Laura said. He doesn't understand any of it. The recording ended. I sat back, stunned, not by the content, I'd already suspected much of it, but by the fact that Alex had recorded it. That he'd risked something to capture it, then quietly passed it on to me. I remembered now, 3 months earlier, a visit to our house where he'd given me a flash drive and told me it had a school project on it. Just hold on to it for me, he'd said. In case. I thought he meant in case he lost the original. He'd meant in case something happened. I copied the file to my encrypted folder and backed it up on the second drive. Then I emailed a copy to Mark using the secured account he'd set up years ago, when he was still working federal investigations. He responded less than 5 minutes later. Got it. That recording changes everything. I'll loop in our contact. Sit tight. I powered down the computer and pulled out my old planner. It wasn't digital. Just paper and ink, but it had everything: account numbers, property information, legal contacts. I made a list of what needed to be done. First, freeze my accounts. I'd already moved the most important funds into a separate savings account months ago, something Russell and I had quietly maintained for emergencies. The main accounts were still accessible through shared family access. I logged in, changed all passwords, enabled two-factor authentication, and removed Derek's name as authorized user. I sent notice to the banks with Russell's notarized letter of estate wishes attached. Second, contact the life insurance provider. I prepared a statement contesting the beneficiary change, attaching a scanned image of the forged signature and the original policy signed in Russell's hand. I cited the falsified declaration of my death as evidence of fraud and requested an immediate freeze on all distributions pending investigation. Third, notify the estate attorney. Not the firm Derek used, but Russell's old contact, Marianne Rhodes. She'd retired recently, but I still had her home number. I called. She answered on the third ring, groggy but alert. "Michelle?" she said, voice rising. "It's almost midnight. What's wrong?" "I need your help," I said. "Someone's trying to dissolve my estate without my consent. I believe it's my son. There's forged paperwork and now possibly an attempted poisoning." The line was quiet for a moment. "I'll come out in the morning," she said. "Email me everything you have. I'll call in a favor with the probate judge." I did exactly that, sent a clean packet with organized attachments, labeled recordings, and a copy of Russell's letter. Then I turned off the computer and stepped outside. The night was colder than I expected. Clear, still, the trees quiet except for a few wind-stirred branches. I wrapped Russell's old jacket tighter around my shoulders and looked out over the hills. In the distance, the lake reflected a sliver of moonlight. I hadn't stood here in years. Not since the last time we came up together. He used to tell me, "If things ever get too loud down there, come here. It's where we remember who we are." And I did remember. I remembered every version of myself that had stood on this porch, the mother, the wife, the caretaker, the silent helper. But this time, I wasn't just here to rest. I was here to prepare. When I stepped back inside, I saw the ring. I'd set it on the table without thinking. The opal still caught the light. I'd saved it for a daughter-in-law I thought I'd grow to love. I now realized I'd been saving it for the wrong reasons. It had become a symbol of who I thought I needed to be, someone useful, giving, careful not to offend. I slipped it into a small envelope and placed it in the drawer. Not because I was done with it, but because I was no longer using it as currency for acceptance. It was just a ring now. Mine to keep. I locked the doors, checked the windows again, then climbed into bed with the old quilt folded at the end. I didn't sleep much, but I rested. My mind stayed busy, but the kind of busy that makes sense: steps to take, things to document, people to trust. It was the first time in months I'd felt like I was steering anything. By morning, Mark had replied with a brief update. "Someone tried to access your bank account last night. Denied. They're moving fast. You were right to leave." I made tea and stood by the window, watching a small fox wind its way along the edge of the property. Russell used to call that the unofficial border, where our land met the wild. I had crossed my own border now. And I wasn't going back. The first message arrived just before noon. It came through email, but not from Derek directly. The sender used a name I didn't recognize, something forgettable and vague: James H. The subject line read, "Regarding your assets, urgent." I opened it. The tone was polite. Too polite. "Dear Ms. Lawson. We've recently been made aware of some discrepancies involving joint estate documentation. To avoid legal delays or unnecessary complications, we'd appreciate an opportunity to clarify matters in person. Please let us know a convenient time to meet. This would be in everyone's best interest. Sincerely, James Heller. Private estate consultant. No phone number. No company. No signature block. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to Mark and then deleted it from my inbox. The second message came that evening. A text this time. The sender ID was just a number. Michelle, you're making things harder than they need to be. Let's be adults about this. No one wants to see you embarrassed. I blocked the number. The third came in the form of a knock. It was nearly midnight. I'd turned off all the lights and was about to climb into bed when I heard it. Not loud. Not frantic. Just 3 sharp, deliberate knocks at the front door. I didn't move. I stood in the hallway, listening. No follow-up knock. No voice calling out. Just stillness. Eventually I stepped into the living room and peeked out through the side window. A man in a dark coat stood by the porch rail. Tall, trim, hair cut close. No car in sight. No movement. He wasn't lost. He wasn't confused. He was waiting. After a minute, he turned and walked away, calmly, without a word. I waited another 10 before calling Mark. They're probing, he said. Trying to rattle you. Don't take the bait. What do they think I'll do? Run. Sign something. Delete the evidence. Anything to reset control. But they're losing ground now. Keep everything locked. Stay where you are. I ended the call and turned on the outside floodlight. The next morning, I bought a new lock for the front door and reinforced the back one with a steel bar bracket from the hardware store. I also installed a small battery-powered camera that Mark sent by courier. It uploaded footage directly to a cloud account he controlled. Derek finally reached out himself on the 4th day. He left a voicemail. Mom, it's me. I don't know where you are, and that's fine, I get it. But we should talk. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Laura and I are trying to handle everything responsibly, and you've been out of the loop for a while now. We're doing what's best for the family. He paused. I could hear him breathe. I know you're upset. I just wish you would trust us. We've always taken care of you. You don't have to do this. Call me. Please. I listened to it twice. Saved it. Uploaded it to the backup drive. The language was careful. Measured. A few years ago, I might have believed him. Might have told myself he was trying. That I was being paranoid. But not anymore. Not after hearing my own name listed under deceased. Not after hearing him say the words, not for long. I didn't reply. 2 days later, there was another message, this one angrier. Okay. So this is how it's going to be. You think you're going to make this into some crusade? You've always been dramatic. This isn't a storybook, Mom. You're going to ruin everything if you keep pushing. That one, I sent directly to Mark. Let him talk, he said. He's unraveling. Don't give him a target. The pressure shifted after that. Laura called once, just once. Left a tight, bright message that almost sounded sincere. Michelle, it's Laura. I hope you're somewhere comfortable. We're all very worried about you. Derek's been beside himself. Please let us know you're okay. We can clear up whatever you think is going on. Your family. You'll always be. She ended with a short laugh. Nervous, rehearsed. I didn't believe a word. Mark contacted me later that afternoon. FBI's been briefed. The recordings are under review. The forged documents give us leverage. They'll move carefully, but they'll move. Meanwhile, they'll likely try to flush you out. Don't make yourself available. Don't go near public banks or known properties. They're watching for you. That night, someone tried the back door. They didn't force it. Just tested the handle, maybe hoping I'd left it unlocked. But I heard it. I had the metal bar installed, so the door didn't move. But I sat in the dark with a flashlight in one hand and Russell's old walking stick in the other, not blinking, until dawn. In the morning, I found footprints in the snow, just a single pair, leading from the woods and back again. No tire marks. No other tracks. They were escalating. But I didn't budge. I kept my routines quiet. I kept the curtains drawn. I wrote everything down, every message, every knock, every suspicious sound. And I waited. Eventually, Derek stopped calling. So did Laura. But Alex didn't. He waited a full week after the party. Then a letter came in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in careful, rounded handwriting. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper. Dear Grandma. I hope you're safe. I saw you that night. I didn't know what else to do. I'm sorry I didn't warn you better. I was scared. They talk about you like you're already gone. But I know you're not. I found the flash drive again after the party. The one I gave you. I think they were trying to find it. I had another copy in my backpack. I gave it to my counselor at school. She says she's showing it to someone. I don't know who. I love you. Please don't come back. Not yet. Love. Alex. I read it 3 times. He knew. He'd known more than I ever realized. And now he was helping, quietly, in his own way. The same boy who once cried over a bird with a broken wing. The same boy who baked cookies with me every Christmas. He had remembered who I was when the rest of them tried to erase it. That night, I sat by the fireplace and wrote him back. I told him I was proud of him. That I was safe. That he'd done the right thing. I told him I loved him. And I promised, no matter what happened next, I wasn't going anywhere without making sure he was okay. Mark called the next day with an update. They've started interviews. Quietly. Derek won't know yet. But they're talking to witnesses. Looking into the medical reports from the hospital. One of the guests tested positive for a substance that shouldn't have been in the food. Do they know who it was meant for? Not yet. But we have the audio. That's enough to keep him boxed in. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. And you? He asked. How are you holding up? I'm not angry, I said. Not even shocked anymore. No. I just feel done. There was a pause. That's a good place to be. The first message came the next day, just before lunch. It wasn't from Derek. It came through email, from someone calling themselves James Heller. No company listed, no phone number, no logo, just a subject line, regarding your assets, urgent. The tone was overly polite, the kind of polished threat that pretends to be helpful. Dear Ms. Lawson. We've recently been made aware of discrepancies involving shared estate documentation. To avoid unnecessary complications, we'd appreciate the opportunity to clarify matters in person. Please let us know a convenient time. This would be in everyone's best interest. Sincerely. James Heller. Private estate consultant. I stared at it for a while before forwarding it to Mark. Then I deleted it without replying. Nothing about it surprised me. It was the kind of soft first knock they used to see if the door might open willingly. The second message came that evening, through text, from an unlisted number. Michelle, you're making things harder than they need to be. Let's be adults about this. No one wants to see you embarrassed. Blocked. I checked the perimeter of the cabin that night. Just once. All the windows were locked. The new bolts on the doors were in place. The camera by the back entrance, the one Mark had sent in an unmarked box, was uploading quietly to the cloud storage we shared. I still hadn't seen anyone approach since I arrived, but I no longer believed I was invisible. Only inconvenient. The third message came by knock. It was nearly midnight. I'd turned off the lights and was heading to bed when I heard it, 3 sharp taps at the front door. No pause, no follow-up. Just enough to get my attention. I didn't move at first. Then, slowly, I stepped into the living room and looked through the curtain. A man in a long, dark coat stood at the edge of the porch. Tall, broad-shouldered. His hands in his pockets. No hat. No phone. No flashlight. He didn't look around. Just stood there for a full minute. Then he turned and walked off into the dark. No car engine followed. No crunch of tires. Just quiet steps on snow until the silence returned completely. I called Mark. "They're feeling you out," he said. "Trying to rattle you into showing your hand. Don't open the door. Don't respond. Just stay cold. They think I'll fold. They think you're still the version of yourself they shaped. The helper. The giver. The one who never says no." I looked at the screen door still gently rocking from the man's departure. "I'm not her anymore." "Good," Mark said. "Then we'll win." The next morning, I installed the steel reinforcement bar on the back door and set up another small sensor on the window above the sink. I kept a list now: date, time, type of contact, what was said or heard. I kept the printed messages, screenshots of the texts, and every voicemail in a binder. The fourth message came from Derek himself. A voicemail. "Mom. It's me. I don't know where you are, and that's okay. I get it. But I think we should talk. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Laura and I are trying to handle everything responsibly, and you've been a little out of the loop. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone. I wish you'd trust us. We've always taken care of you." There was a long pause before he added, "Please call me." I listened to it twice. Saved it. Added it to the binder. Then I listened again, this time just for his tone. Measured. Soothing. The exact same voice he used on customer service lines, or when trying to charm Laura's parents into investing in the business he never quite managed to build. It didn't sound like a son worried about his mother. It sounded like a man negotiating a delay. 2 days passed with silence. Then came another message, angrier this time. "So this is what we're doing now. You're going to make this a big deal. You've always been dramatic, Mom. This isn't one of your stories. This is real life. And you're going to destroy everything if you keep pushing." That voicemail went to Mark. "He's unraveling," Mark said. "And he's starting to realize you're not bluffing." Laura called next. Her voice was high and tight, overly sweet. "Michelle, hi. It's Laura. I hope you're okay. We've all been very worried. Derek's been beside himself. We just want to clear up whatever confusion there is. Your family. You always will be." She ended with a clipped laugh that didn't land. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They weren't calling out of concern. They were calling because they could feel the ground shifting. And for the first time in their carefully managed world, I wasn't where they expected me to be. Then someone tried the back door. It was late, close to 2 a.m. I'd been reading, not sleeping, too alert. I heard the click of the knob before I saw the shadow. They didn't force anything. Just tested the handle. Slowly. Repeatedly. Like they were waiting for it to give. But it didn't. The metal bar held. The window sensors stayed silent. I sat in the armchair with Russell's old cane beside me, watching the frame of the door for any movement. I never saw the face. Only the curve of a shoulder as it moved out of the camera's line of sight and disappeared into the trees. By morning, I found the footprints. Just one pair. Long strides coming from the east woods, turning back the same way. No tire marks. No evidence of a vehicle nearby. Mark called after reviewing the footage. "They're desperate," he said. "That means you're winning. Don't let up." The cabin held up well. Heat stayed steady. Supplies lasted. I cooked small meals, wrote daily notes in the journal I'd started after Russell died, and checked the camera feed twice a day. I didn't feel like prey. I felt like bait. A week passed. Then came the envelope. No return address. Just my name, written in careful blue ink. Inside was a folded sheet of notebook paper. On it, Alex's handwriting. Neat, deliberate. "Dear Grandma. I hope you're okay. I saw you that night. I'm sorry I didn't warn you better. I was scared. They talk about you like you're not here anymore. But I know you are. I found the flash drive again. The one I gave you. I think they were looking for it after the party. I had another copy in my backpack. I gave it to the counselor at school. She said she's showing it to someone. I love you. Don't come back yet. Alex." I read it 3 times. Then I folded it back up and tucked it into my journal. I didn't cry. I felt something rise in my chest, but it wasn't sorrow. It was gratitude. And something close to pride. Alex had seen the shape of what was happening. He didn't fully understand it, but he knew enough to act. He hadn't been turned against me. He hadn't been taught to see me as a burden. He remembered who I was to him, and what I meant. And when the moment came, he did what he could. He was the only one who hadn't lied. That night, I wrote him back. A simple letter. "Dear Alex. I'm safe. I'm proud of you. You did the right thing. I know things are confusing right now. I know the grown-ups around you are saying things that don't make sense. But you've always had a good heart and a smart one. Trust that. I'm not coming back yet. But I'm watching. I'm listening. And I'll be here when the time comes. Love always. Grandma." I mailed it from the drop box by the ranger station. It would take a few days, maybe more, but I didn't care. What mattered was that he knew. Mark called again the next day. "They've started interviews," he said. "Quiet ones. The FBI took the audio. The forged documents too. One of the guests from the party had a toxicology report that's raising questions. Do they know who it was meant for? Not yet. But they're starting to understand who had motive. And Alex? He's protected." His counselor flagged the recording. "It's been forwarded up the line." I poured myself a cup of tea and stood by the front window, watching the slow melt of late winter snow from the pines. "And you?" Mark asked. "How are you holding up?" I took a long breath. "I'm not angry," I said. "Not scared, either. No. I just feel finished." There was a pause. That's a good place to start. 3 weeks passed before anything made the news. It came quietly, the way these things often do when powerful people fall. No sirens, no flashing lights. Just a single paragraph at the bottom of the local news site. Local business owner Derek Lawson is under investigation for allegations related to insurance fraud and suspected tampering with financial estate documents. No formal charges have been filed, but multiple sources confirm an ongoing federal inquiry. They didn't mention the hospital incident, or the toxicology report, or the fact that one of the party guests, Laura's friend from her yoga class, had only recently come out of a medically induced coma. But the silence was telling. Mark said the case had been moved up the chain. Higher stakes. Bigger implications. They're building it carefully, he explained. Quiet means serious. I didn't share the article. I didn't call anyone. I read it once, printed a copy for my binder, and went back to watering the small herb garden I'd planted by the cabin's kitchen window. By then, the snow had melted fully. The trees were starting to bud. The lake looked clearer each morning. Mark kept me updated in pieces. A judge had issued a preliminary order halting all transactions involving my estate. The insurance company had launched their own audit. The forged documents were officially catalogued, entered into evidence. Several bank employees had been contacted for testimony. Laura had stopped answering inquiries. Derek had hired an attorney. But he hadn't contacted me again. Not a single word. Mark said that was typical. The illusion breaks when they know you're no longer movable. You were never meant to be a person in this story. Just an asset. I believed that. I'd felt it. But hearing it in plain words still took something out of me. Marianne, the retired estate attorney, called a week later. Her voice was firmer than I remembered. Everything is frozen for now, she said. You're reinstated on the policy, and the probate court has confirmed your standing. The other documents will take time to unwind, but your name is safe again. My name, I repeated, letting that sit for a moment. It was strange how much that mattered. I hadn't thought about it before this. But to be marked as legally dead, without your knowledge, without even a courtesy call, felt like an erasure that went deeper than paper. It was like being told, officially, that you didn't exist anymore. That you were no longer needed. That your presence had become a problem to solve. Now, I had it back. I asked Marianne if she'd heard anything more about Derek. She paused. He's cooperating, for now. But they're looking at broader charges. There's reason to believe this wasn't the first time he manipulated someone's estate. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't need to know. I only said thank you and hung up the phone. That night, I walked down to the lake with a flashlight and Russell's old flannel coat. The wind had picked up, cool but not bitter. I sat on a boulder by the edge and listened to the water. It lapped gently, slow and steady. I remembered Russell skipping stones here. I remembered Alex trying to imitate him, always tossing too hard, laughing when the rocks just plunked into the water. I wondered when things had shifted. Not just with Derek, but with me. When I'd stopped looking at my life as mine, and instead started measuring it by my usefulness to others. Somewhere between the casseroles and the babysitting and the careful, yes, of course, responses, I had gone quiet inside. Not sad. Just quiet. Like I didn't want to disrupt the air around me. Now I was starting to hear my own voice again. And it wasn't angry. It wasn't vengeful. It was just mine. A week later, Mark called with the news. Derek was arrested this morning. Quietly. They don't want a spectacle. But it's official. I didn't say anything at first. He won't be held long, Mark continued. It's a process. There's still more to unravel. But this is the point of no return. Did he say anything? Only what his lawyer told him to. What about Alex? He's okay. With his counselor for now. The school is involved. Protective services too, but it looks like he's going to stay with a foster family until this stabilizes. My stomach twisted at that. Is he scared? Yes, Mark said gently. But he knows you're safe. And that's helping more than you think. That afternoon, I packed up the cabin. Not all of it. Just what I'd brought. The binders. The drives. The letters. I left the herbs in the windowsill and the quilt folded at the foot of the bed. The air smelled faintly of cedar and old pine floorboards. Before I locked the door, I left a note inside the kitchen drawer. Just a single line. If you ever need to remember who you are, come here. I drove south until the trees began to thin and the land opened wide. I found a small house near a quiet river in Oregon. It had a wraparound porch and a shed out back that could be turned into a workshop or a garden space. The realtor asked what brought me out there. Fresh air, I said. And peace. It wasn't grand. It didn't need to be. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I just wanted quiet that was real. Not silence made of fear, but the kind that you earn when you no longer owe your life to anyone else's idea of it. Mark helped me set up new accounts. Everything was under my name again, no co-signers, no trustees. I hired an accountant who didn't ask personal questions. I paid for everything in cash at first, then slowly shifted to a clean card in my own name. I even updated my will. Left the cabin to Alex. Only if he still likes the woods when he's older, I wrote in the note attached. If not, sell it. Use the money to get somewhere safe. He'd earned that. A piece of peace. I didn't follow Derek's trial. I didn't read the articles. Mark said there would be headlines, maybe even a news segment. But I'd lived the story already. I didn't need to hear how others chose to tell it. Instead, I started planting. Peas, carrots, some spinach. A few blueberry bushes that might not bear fruit until next year. I didn't mind waiting. It felt good to work the soil with my own hands, to pull weeds and sweat a little in the sun. One afternoon, I got a letter. Handwritten. Short. Dear Grandma. They said I can stay here until the end of the school year. It's okay. The people are nice. I miss you. I think I want to be a teacher when I grow up. Or maybe something else. I'm not sure yet. I kept the drive. The counselor said it was important. I told her it wasn't just for them. It was to make sure you were okay too. I hope you're happy. Love. Alex. I folded the letter slowly and placed it in my drawer. Then I walked out to the porch and watched the sun dip behind the trees. I didn't feel like a victim. I didn't feel like a survivor either. I just felt like myself. Finally.